What's up? How's it going? Thad Brown here with you on the Endgame. It is Monday, November the 17th, Thanksgiving, about 10 days away, a week from Thursday. It is actually close to my beginning of Christmas music time. I have probably the most unique start date to Christmas music season. So I know for a lot of people it's November the 1st. For a lot of people it's the day after Thanksgiving. What I do is, because I go to Buffalo every week to preview whatever Bills game is going on in November, my Christmas music time will always be the drive back from Buffalo, not the day before Thanksgiving or the week of Thanksgiving, but the week before that. So for me, that's this week. Christmas music season for me begins after I come back from Buffalo for Media Day. Now, since the Bills play on Thursday this week, Media Day will be on Tuesday, which means I get an extra day of Christmas music time. I know this is only interesting to me, but when you get your own show, then you can start the show like that. Anyway, we're going to talk about the Bills' win over the Tampa Bay Bucks. Lots to get to. Look, Josh Allen was amazing, but was he that amazing? We'll discuss. We'll get into Keon Coleman some more. I know we're getting close to the beat the dead horse stage with that story, but it does deserve a few more comments and some more thoughts that you probably haven't heard from guys in the locker room about the Keon Coleman situation. We'll talk about where the Bills are in the division race, Cole Bishop stuff, and also, of course, Caleb Carr will be in a little later to join me for another edition of You See This. Wild stuff from over the weekend, a story that caught my eye. We'll get to a little later on. I know a lot of other people were into it as well. Let's start, though, with what I thought last week would become a tradition, and I'm going to make it a tradition because it is, of course, very interesting to many Bills fans. Where are the Bills when it comes to the division race? Buffalo won. New England won this past week. New England won on Thursday, but it still was obviously this week in the game. So here's where the Bills stand right now in terms of trying to run down the Patriots in the AFC East. Pretty much three main scenarios or three easy ways to remember. And by easy, I mean relatively easy, because obviously there's a lot of junk going on the screen right there. Number one, if the Bills win out, finish 14-3, winning out would include a loss in New England, or I'm sorry, a win in New England in a few weeks. If that happens, then New England still has to lose another game somewhere. Can be any game, doesn't matter which one. But Buffalo would be 14-3, then New England would be 13-4. Buffalo would win the division. Scenario two, win out for the Bills among all the remaining AFC games. So in this scenario, the Week 17 game against Philly for Buffalo would not matter at all. Win or lose, it's irrelevant. And then, remember, if you win out in the AFC, that means the Bills would again beat New England in Foxborough in 4 weeks. In addition, New England would have to lose one game in the division. And you see right there what the division games are. They're at the Jets Week 17, at Miami Week 18. That would be the only scenario where the Bills win in a tie. All the rest of these are pretty much my way of allowing you to remember how Buffalo would finish ahead of New England. The only way the Bills win a tie is that second line right there, where the Bills win all their AFC games that are left and New England loses a division game. Because the problem the Bills have with any tie is that they pretty much will lose. They're likely to lose all the scenarios. Right now, in all the tiebreakers that matter, Buffalo is behind. Head-to-head, the Patriots have already won. Division. Not only have the Patriots beat Buffalo head-to-head, but Buffalo's got a Miami loss. So that makes it worse. And then when it comes to common games, Buffalo is trailing in that because New England has a non-common game loss. This will get a little more in the weeds, but when you talk about common games, teams in the division play 14 games in common. So when you think about who's winning that tiebreaker, don't worry about the 14 games. Think about the other 3, because there's only 3 left over that are not in common. And stay with me on this. The team with the worst non-common game record is winning the common games tiebreaker. I bring this all up to say, because New England lost week 1 to the Raiders, that's a non-common game. So unless the Bills also lose a non-common game, they're going to lose that tiebreaker with New England. And common games is the third tiebreaker. It's head-to-head, division record, common games. So because the Patriots lost week 1 to the Raiders, their other non-common games or whatever garbage team they play in the South, and then the Giants, who they play in a couple weeks. So the Bills, Kansas City, Houston, and Philly. So that's why Let's go back to the screen here. So the Bills, to be able to win a tie, first have to catch New England head-to-head, so win the other game. They need New England to lose a division game. That's why those last two games, Jets and Miami, matter to New England. And that's why the Philly game does not matter, because it is a non-common game. So if the Bills lose to Philly, because remember, if they win out in the AFC and beat Philly, then you go back to line one. They would just win out. If the Bills lose to Philly and win all the rest of their AFC games, now the Bills have a non-common game loss. It matches New England's non-common game loss to the Raiders, and then that tiebreaker doesn't matter. So if the Bills are even head-to-head, and they're even in division losses because New England has to lose another division game, and the common games thing doesn't matter, the next tiebreaker is AFC record, and that's where Buffalo would finally prevail. You got all that? The last scenario on this list is if Buffalo wins their game in New England and then, again, just finish ahead of the Patriots. So lose less games than New England loses among the other games. It's number 1 and number 3 are essentially the same thing, but number 1 is win out and number 3 is not win out. But essentially they're the same thing. They're both, you got to find a way to finish ahead of the Patriots. The only tie they win is that middle scenario where the Bills lose to Philly, but win all the rest of their games, and then New England also loses the division game. It's a lot to take in, I get it. Here's the bottom line. It's still not very likely. The Bills right now only have, I think it's a 15% chance. That's what I wrote down. 15% chance, according to the Athletic Playoff Machine, to win the division. So this is still more likely than not a wild card team. Now, the win over Tampa, I think, makes it a heck of a lot more likely that Buffalo is a wild card team. And things are kind of breaking down for them in front of them on the schedule. You got Houston this week. C.J. Stroud is battling a concussion. He may not play. Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers are the next game. Aaron Rodgers just fractured his left wrist, although it sounds today like he might not miss any time, but that's the thing that's going on. And then after that, you got Cincinnati at home. Joe Burrow claims he wants to be back for that. And the Bengals lost again to the Steelers, so their season and record are rapidly circling the drain. I don't know if you want to throw Joe Burrow out there if the Bengals are 4-8 or 3-9 when they come to Buffalo. So the Bills are now 7-3 with 3 banged up quarterbacks ahead. So at least the wild card part of it is looking more and more likely. But as for the division, I think the most realistic scenario, to be honest, for the Bills winning the division is winning out. Just because of how poor New England's remaining schedule is. The Patriots have the Bengals and the Giants. Should be a couple wins. So that's 11-2. Obviously, the Bengals with Joe Flacco can be a little dicey. They can heat up with the way Joe Flacco throws the ball and the receivers they have. But assuming the Patriots take care of business, that's 11-2. Then they get their bye. Then it's the Buffalo game. So for the sake of this argument, we'll assume Buffalo wins that game. If the Bills lose to New England and Foxborough, it is over. Because any scenario where the Bills lose to the Patriots means the Patriots have to lose 3 of their other 5 games. And as I said, their other 5 games are Cincy, the Giants, Baltimore, and then the Jets and Dolphins. They're not losing 3 of those games. So if the Bills lose in Foxborough, then they are 100% a wild card. But for the sake of this discussion, let's say Buffalo wins that game in Foxborough, so New England will lose there. Like I said, their last 3 are Baltimore, Jets, Miami. The Patriots could very well lose to Baltimore. In fact, I probably would have picked that right this second, that Baltimore wins that game. But that still means New England at worst is 13-4. And the only way Buffalo finishes ahead of New England at 13-4, if they lose to Baltimore, is by running the table. So to me, if you're talking about the Bills winning the division, you can't lose again. That's pretty much the scenario left for Buffalo. All right, let's get to the game yesterday. And there was so much good about this one for the Bills. They were impressive on offense, had the passing game rolling. And this is the thing I thought about on the field and have really kind of hung with me since. The Bills in this game turned the ball over 3 times. They allowed 30-plus points on defense, and James Cook did not run for 50 yards. If I had thrown those stats to you Sunday at 12:30, if you were a Bills fan, you probably would not have even watched the game because that combination of stats says the Bills are going to lose by 2 touchdowns, and it's not going to be pretty. And it was anything but that. Buffalo scored 44 points. Josh Allen threw for 300-plus yards. 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns rushing. That is the third time anybody's ever done that, by the way, which is incredible. And of the first 2, Josh Allen's done one of those too. He's just an amazing quarterback. So he had himself a day. The Bills' passing offense seemingly got healthy. Here's the thing. So I've been going through the film on the Bills' offense and really dug in hard in the first half, kind of blitzed through the second half a little bit to prepare for this show. I've still got more work to do on that. There were a lot of things that I don't want to say bounced Buffalo's way, but it just felt like there was a chunk of scenarios that made this passing game easier, this success, all these points easier for Buffalo. Now, they had 7 scoring drives, right? 6 touchdowns and a field goal. Of those 7, 3 of them were short fields. You had 2 long kickoff returns. The first touchdown drive of the game was a 36-yard drive off the McCole Hardman kickoff return. You had a 25-yard touchdown off of the Cole Bishop interception. And you had a 22 or whatever yard drive. That was the field goal off of one of Ray Davis's long kick returns. So that's 3 of the 7 drives right off the bat assisted by field position. That first drive also had a pass that ricocheted straight up into the air because when you watch it again on film, Josh Allen, I think, read the wrong defense. That happens. He was late on his delivery, and that throw, I'd say 7 times out of 10 is an interception. Frankly, when Josh Allen releases that ball is probably more likely to be a touchdown for Tampa than it is anything good for Buffalo. As it happens, ball bounces straight up in the air, falls harmlessly, no problem. Later on the same drive, Ty Johnson fumbles but recovers it. That's also certainly on the fortunate side. So that first touchdown drive had all kinds of help to it. The Bills also, on the last touchdown drive, had a third down play. They got stoned, but they got a face mask penalty, which helped. Now, that's probably still a field goal, and Buffalo gets 41 points. But again, that has nothing to do with the Bills. That's not Buffalo creating a penalty. That's not Buffalo being in a good position that Tampa Bay is trying to catch up to and illegally holding, grabbing, whatever. That's just Tampa Bay, whoever was making the tackle, not being responsible with their hands. On the touchdown drive at the end of the first half, there's a roughing the passer penalty in there. Great call, perfect call. The defender tackles Josh Allen, lands full body weight on top. He's got to know better. 100% that's a penalty every time. But that's still 15 bonus yards. Now, that's the Ty Johnson catch and run score. He probably scores from 80 yards in that play. Does that mean the Bills are in the same spot? That's how that drive goes? I don't know. On top of that, the Bills in this game had 3 touchdown passes of 25 yards or more. Before this game, they had 5 of those all year. And 2 of them were in the garbage time end of the game in the Miami loss. So in relevant games still on the line situations, the Bills had as many 25-yard touchdown passes against Tampa as they had the rest of the year. The bottom line is that there was a lot of stuff that went into this game that just worked out for Buffalo. Now, look, does that mean it's impossible for the Bills to repeat this game, that this passing game is 100% a one-off, it can't happen again? No. You know why? Because they have Josh Allen. And that works out pretty good for the Bills a lot of the time. But does that mean that this is something I think the Bills should be relying on? Probably not. We've seen the Bills have these passing game struggles through the year. If this had been week 2 and all this had happened, I'd say, well, you know what? The Bills maybe got a little fortunate in this game, but their passing offense has been so great that this week it'll work. It'll be getting lucky. Next week it'll be them just being dominant. Well, they haven't been dominant much of this year. So it's hard to look at this game and the number of things that did bounce their way offensively. Bounce their way is wrong. The number of things that worked out for them offensively, and to feel like this is something that can be repeated the rest of the year. Maybe. Now, there are a number of parts of this game that were a credit to Buffalo, that were Buffalo improving on what they've been this year. And for me, number one is Joe Brady, because I thought Joe Brady called a really, really good game. The early sneak touchdown, I thought, was a formation where he hid the intention to sneak a lot better than the Bills have all year. And that sneak was wide open. That was the easiest sneak touchdown Josh has had. The least painful, for sure, he's had all year. The quick screen that Ty Johnson did score on, that was not only, the right call, but it was a nice reaction to what Tampa had been doing. Everybody knows Tampa loves the blitz, but for most of the first half, the Bucs had only been bringing one strategic blitzer. And the Bucs hide the blitz really well. Give Todd Bowles credit for that. But for the first and second quarter, it wasn't anything all out. It wasn't anything wild. It wasn't corners coming from the sideline or safeties blitzing from the parking lot. It was just one linebacker or maybe a nickel corner up at the line of scrimmage blitzing on his own. The end of the first half drive, every single snap the Bills had once they got past that first Tyrell Shavers 20-yard catch to get the drive going. The Bucs kept on sending 6 every time, over and over. And it was causing some problems. Again, the roughing the passer penalty, the Bucs won the down and then committed a stupid penalty at the end of it to give Buffalo 15 yards. So Joe Brady reacts and says, the heck with this. You want to keep blitzing, we're going to throw around you. That particular play, the Bucs were actually faking a blitz, but it didn't matter. They had 6 guys committed to the middle. Josh Allen throws outside. Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir hit crazy good blocks. I mean, probably the best combo those two have ever hit on the same play ever. And Ty Johnson's off to the races with a little Terrell Shavers assist at the end. But that starts with Joe Brady recognizing what's going on and calling a good play to get around it. He had another little screen play in the first quarter where the timing on it was so ridiculous that David Edwards was playing left guard, had to take him a second to wait for Deion Dawkins to clear out of the way in pass protection, and then he could go sideways out to get a linebacker. There's so many moving parts in this play that the coaching there has to be pretty high level. Because if David Edwards leaves too early, he bumps into Deion Dawkins, then there's no one out there to make the block and the play is dead. If he leaves too late, then he can't reach the linebacker who was way out on the perimeter to free up Ty Johnson for a 7-yard gain. It was only a 7-yard play. It was the play where Ty Johnson fumbled the ball. It wasn't a huge play, but it worked because the timing was flawless. That was the play where Josh Allen faked to his right, turned back to his left. He has to do that to give David Edwards time to get out. And by faking, he freezes enough of the other defenders to make sure no one gets there. It only went for 7 yards again, but it was an incredible play in terms of everyone being on the same page. And Joe Brady deserves a big chunk of credit for that. The first James Cook catch, not the touchdown catch, the one where he kind of got thrown a ball, it looked like a check down over the middle. Tampa Bay had been kind of sagging their short zone coverage a little deeper all game long. On that play, Brady did a nice job of having receivers run at those linebackers and drag them even further down the field so that when James Cook catches the ball, he's in oodles of space. Over and over and over, Brady pressed the right buttons, had receivers in the right spot, seemed like he had the right calls against Tampa coverage. He had a really, really good game. And for a guy that's been under a bunch of criticism or facing a bunch of criticism the last few weeks, I thought he had as much of a good bounce back game as anybody. Now, Josh Allen, like I said, had a good, look, it's a great Josh Allen game. He had 6 touchdowns. But going back to it on film, he's still not seeing the field superbly. There were a few plays in structure where I felt like he had opportunities to get a ball out on time, drop back, hit the back foot, release. So this wasn't as clean a game as you would want. Again, I put on the screen their worst 6 touchdown day ever. There's only been a few of those. So we're not talking about the 105th best 6 touchdown day, maybe the 3rd or 4th. But a lot of this was Josh Allen doing the individual magic stuff that he absolutely can do all day long, that cannot be discounted as something the Bills can, I don't want to say rely on, but can expect on a regular basis. But the problem is, again, and I'll go back to what I was talking about before, we've seen so many Bills games this year where it hasn't worked out as well for Josh Allen, where he scrambles to the right. The Terrell Shavers touchdown catch where Allen throws back across his body, normally he scrambles to the right and just keeps going right. On this particular play, Tampa, in only a 3-man rush, had the defensive end, and I'm sure he's coached to do this, get outside to force Josh Allen back to the inside. That doesn't happen most of the time. Most of the time, Josh gets outside and either keeps or throws going to his right, his strong side. If that happens, the Shavers touchdown catch doesn't exist because Allen will not throw back across his body 50 yards across the field. His arm is strong. It ain't that strong. And if you want evidence of what the Josh Allen improvisation has been doing this year, just go back to the first quarter. Because that interception, we all saw, that's as bad as it gets. And not that that has been what Josh Allen doing things on his own has been all year, but the overall product for this passing game has not been good enough. This Tampa game certainly improves the average. It makes the overall look better. But I have a hard time looking at this one game and landing on, oh, the passing game is fixed. It's no problem. Especially when, again, it's Tyrell Shavers leaking out on a scramble drill. It's Ty Johnson hitting a screenplay. I love Ty Johnson. He's a heck of a player, and he had a good game otherwise. That particular play was him making a catch and running straight forward. That's a Joe Brady call, and that's about the three guys, the receivers, who are blocking for him. And Ty Johnson on a screen is a good play, but I don't think it's something you can count on for 50 yards a lot. So this was an encouraging day for the Bills. There's no doubt about that. And Joe Brady hit some stuff. They were very good in the intermediate part of the field in terms of passing the ball, especially in the second half. They got the running backs more involved, although Ty Johnson being more involved, he's been running that screenplay for a good chunk of the year. Not all the time, but I think the last 3-4 games we've seen that play be used. So that's not brand new. James Cook on either a wheel or a rail route being released out of the backfield for the touchdown. That's something we haven't seen a lot. I like seeing that. Getting that back into the offense is something I think the Bills should try and do a little more of. Not that they haven't done it at all this year, but not enough. James Cook just in space. It's not easy to create, but Joe Brady did a good job of it on two different plays. Both the dump play that I talked about earlier and that play action, the one that the Dolphins stoned for a 4th down stop, but Joe Brady used it on 2nd and 2 late against Tampa, and it worked like a charm for 25 yards. So there are things that Joe Brady and this passing offense did well. They do have levers they can pull, even without Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman on the field. But when you're talking about Josh Allen, fortunately not scrambling right so he can see a receiver all the way back to the left for a touchdown. When you're talking about a screenplay that goes for a 55-yard score. When you're talking about, now I'm going to let the Bills have the James Cook one, but even that's a short field. Every single scoring drive of this game had a thing where you look at it and say, boy, that's not something that I think the Bills should expect to happen all the time. And that's where I dial back on the Bills passing game is fixed. And I don't think Bills fans out there are thinking everything is hunky-dory now and the Bills are just going to roll forward scoring 44 points and 300 passing yards every single week. I think people understand that there were some circumstances behind what happened. And while, again, I like what Joe Brady did, Josh Allen did Josh Allen things, the running backs were more involved in the offense, I don't think that this is a long-term fix. You do it again against Houston, then I'll buy in because that defense is ridiculous on Thursday night. You do it again, maybe not in Houston, but in Pittsburgh the week after, and then against the Bengals, whose defense is terrible and should be like 7-on-7 drills all day long, I'll buy in more. But this one game, after what we've seen from the Bills offense all year, it's hard for me to sit there and say, hey, everything's great. Start buying your Super Bowl tickets. But it was still a really, really solid win that this Bills team needed. Like I said, Keon Coleman didn't play in this game. And although I don't know if that was story A, it was certainly close to the headline no matter what happened in the game. A couple things I want to talk about with Keon. Number one, I posted some video yesterday of Keon pregame kind of dancing around with his teammates while the guys who were playing in the game were warming up. It's a typical pregame drill. It happens every single game. Guys who are inactive or are hurt will generally be on the field talking with teammates, just relaxing. I'm certain that if they can be of help to anybody on the field, they will be. Not usually. These are guys who are not going to play in the game, but they're out there. So Keon was dancing on the field, and I can show you the picture of it. I can't show you the video. And of course, the reaction was very split. There was a large chunk of people that said he should be responsible, he should be acting more mature, this is not appropriate. And then there's a chunk of people who say, look, it doesn't matter, let the man be who he is. And I certainly fall into category 2 of that. Look, Keon Coleman was serving a punishment. He was not going to play in the game. That does not mean he has to act like a monk the entire time he's on the field. I don't know what people are expecting him to be. I understand that there are responsibilities Keon needs to uphold, and there are things he needs to do better. Does that mean that it has to happen 24 hours a day, every single second? No. If Keon, here's the thing. When it's pregame warmups, I can guarantee you that everybody else on the field who is playing in the game is hyped. They're ready to go. They are fired up. They have the juices flowing to 11 out of 10. So if you're on that field, and for the people who want Keon Coleman to act like he's been a 10-year-old who just got spanked and sent to his corner, I don't know what that's going to accomplish. He's out there with his guys. His guys are ready to go. He should be fueling that fire, helping them out. So I have no problem with him dancing around on the field pregame, if that's what he wants to do. The problem with Keon is not what he does in the 1 hour before the game starts at 1 o'clock. It's all the other hours, Monday through Saturday. Now, I do want to also give Keon Coleman credit for addressing the media after the game. He spoke to the media outside the locker room, in the hallway. Traditionally, that's not a spot where we do interviews. That does happen sometimes, but most of the time what happens after a game, guys who are inactive, who didn't work up a sweat, don't need a shower, they leave early. And they just go. No one talks to them. Even guys who play in the game, we generally don't talk to them outside the locker room. They can meet their families there. They're, at that point, off for the day. It's not usually a spot where interviews happen. So the fact that Keon stopped there, he easily could have walked on by. And yes, there would have been some criticism of that, but it was not the scenario where he has to stop, number one. Number two, he answered every question. He was polite. He took responsibility. He said all the right things. So start with that with Keon, at least. But beyond that, it is hard to really give him much credit for what's going on. Obviously, this is something that Keon needs to get better at. We're going to get some sound bites from the players, but let me start with this. Keon's been professional after the mistake. He's been good at standing up and facing the music. It's everything that's before the mistake that's been a problem. You can't just be professional after you screw up. You need to be professional before the screw up happens, to prevent the screw up, to be responsible. Keon Coleman has enough trouble as it is when it comes to finding a way to make catches on the field. I mean, when you're a receiver, it doesn't matter how good your route is. If the defense double covers you, you're not going to be open. If the offensive coordinator calls routes for you that don't fit your skill set, you're probably not going to get open. If the quarterback delivers the ball inaccurately or not on time, it doesn't matter. So all those things go into Keon Coleman, whether or not he gets the ball. But the thing he can control is when he shows up for meetings. There is no reason, there should be no excuse for you not being able to manage your own time. And yeah, it's hard. I get that when you're 22, 23 and on your own for the first time, managing your own schedule, it's not easy. I'm sure we all showed up late at some point in our 20s when it came to going to work. That does not excuse it when we did it. It does not excuse it when Keon Coleman does it, especially when we've reached the point now where it's at least 2 times that he's been punished for it. Sean McDermott runs a tight ship. I don't think it's so tight that one time missing a meeting would be the problem. If he is being suspended or made inactive or sat down for quarters because he's missing meetings, there are other issues that are going on. If Keon Coleman was going for 8 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns every week and being 5 minutes late to meetings, the Bills would move the meetings back 5 minutes. This is not just about being late. This is about the total picture. Keon is not doing enough as a professional. And if the Bills can't trust him to show up on time to meetings, how are they going to trust him to be open when they need him to be? They want this guy to be an integral part of the offense. He hasn't been that yet. And I thought Josh Allen, speaking to the media yesterday, he stopped way short of full-throated support for Keon Coleman.
I don't make those decisions. We love to have him out there. The way that rosters work, it's how it works sometimes.
Hey, Josh, as a leader of the team, obviously, what do you say to Keon in a situation like this where he's not up?
Yeah, just continue to keep working hard, and take control what he can control.
the way rosters are some days. I mean, look, Josh Allen said all the right words. Would love him to be out there, control what you can control. But that was not the words of a quarterback who, and this is me obviously reading into it, seems desperate to get Keon Coleman back on the field. Again, I don't know exactly where Josh Allen lies, but Josh Allen is a lot of things. He's very smart with his words. He's done so many press conferences. He understands what it is to be the face of the franchise. If he really wanted to go out there and fully back Keon Coleman and tell the whole world how great he's been otherwise, he would do that. Other guys did that. Deion Dawkins talked about that. He said, look, I am still a big supporter of Keon Coleman. He's my guy. I got his back. But even Deion Dawkins talked about how he had a conversation with Keon Coleman that was, hey, let this be the last time and let's move forward. And Dawkins said, I'm with you. Or Dawkins said, Keon said, I'm with you. So there are guys in this locker room that will go fully to bat for Keon Coleman. Josh Allen did not do that yesterday. And maybe it was just Josh Allen in the midst of one question. Who knows? But Josh Allen, after the Miami game, got a question about Keon Coleman and was equally short with his words. One other thing I want to talk about with this. So like I said, Deion Dawkins has been very, very supportive of Keon Coleman pretty much from the beginning of this season. Talked about how good he was in the offseason, how the NFL should get ready. And after week one, it looked that way, that Keon Coleman was going to be different. Since then, it has been all downhill. 2 benchings, never more than 4 catches in a game. Most weeks he only catches 3. So Deion Dawkins, talking about Keon Coleman yesterday, said that all these things are hard about being in the NFL. And he mentioned being on time is hard. So I turned around and said to Deion, look, everybody has jobs. Most people who are listening and watching this have jobs, and they have to be on time. And like I said, yeah, we all, no one's perfect being on time. I shouldn't say no one. Most people are not perfect being on time. But why do we call that hard? Why is that something that we are going to put in that hard category? When we're talking about the NFL, where, you know what's hard? Getting open around Patrick Surtain. You know what's hard? Blocking Myles Garrett. You know what's hard? Keeping Josh Allen out of the end zone. That's hard in the NFL. Why is being on time hard? Well, Deion Dawkins had this to say about it.
The kid is young, right? So he's still learning. I don't know how he was in college. This new age of guys, it's different. These guys have to get to our level, which is the NFL, and they have to learn on the fly, learn on the move, learn as the plane and the ship is sailing, right? So we have to roll with our punches, right? And as a veteran player, I support my guys. I know that it's hard. I'm even late, right? Everybody has been late, right? I don't want to overly just put a Band-Aid on it because he knows that he needs to catch the ball, he needs to be on time, and he needs to show up for his football team. We love our guys. We're a brotherhood. We're going to stay accountable for one another. And it's time for Keon to do what he does. And that's not a shot. We're all brothers. He knows. He addressed it. He looked us in the face, and it's time. So we'll see. And I trust him.
So that's Keon's argument for being on time, being hard. And again, I do understand the part about he's a kid. He's still learning. I know it's year 2. It's much less excusable than year 1, but it's still year 2 for a kid. And I understand that a lot of us had trouble at times when it came to managing your schedule, being on time, doing the things you're supposed to do. It is a learning process. But the difference with, I think, our jobs and the things that we do is most of us are on a 25 to 30 year plan with our career, right? You have years to figure out what works for you, what your process is, because you're not supposed to peak until you're in management when you're 30, 35, 40 years old, whatever it is. Keon Coleman's got to peak like right now. If he doesn't figure it out by the end of next year, he's going to be out of football right after that. So even separate of what this means for the 2025 Bills, even if Keon's young, even if we understand all that, if he doesn't get his business handled, it's going to cost him money. It's going to cost him his football future. And obviously it's going to hurt the Buffalo Bills because, like I talked about, as much as that game against Tampa was an impressive showing by the passing game, the Bills are going to need guys like Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid to step up in the end. I don't think you want to roll into January if it's going to be like Denver, Indy, and Kansas City in 3 straight games and expect Terrell Shavers and Ty Johnson to be the guys who are carrying your passing offense. It's going to have to be the guys who have the high athletic ceiling. And if Keon Coleman can't even begin with managing himself off the field, and like I said, I'm pretty convinced that the issues with Keon Coleman go beyond just showing up on time to meetings. Whatever that is, if he can't get it done off the field Monday through Saturday, when he doesn't have to worry about defenses being in the way, when he doesn't have to worry about what play calls are being sent out, when he doesn't have to worry about whether or not Josh Allen is having a good or bad day or whether he's got pressure in his face, if he can't handle the stuff that he can control, which is what all these guys are telling him to do, then I don't see how he's going to be effective for Buffalo on Sundays or Saturdays in January when it really matters. Still more time. It's only midseason. There have been any number of NFL stories that involve players, teams, units who are having trouble in October, November, who figure it out when we get to Christmas and roll through January. It happens. But right now, it does not look too very likely. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back here, still want to hit on Cole Bishop, who had another incredible day. And we will bring Caleb Carr in. We'll do You See This. I got a good one. I think you all saw the Texas A&M game. We're going to talk about that a little bit, why that mattered over the weekend. My name is Thad Brown. This is the Endgame. You're watching Rochester First. All the cool kids, they call it Rock One. We're back after this. Back with you on the Endgame. I'm Thad Brown. This is Rochester First. Sean McDermott is speaking to the media right now. Usually this happens at 4 o'clock on a Monday. It was a Thursday game. The schedule will be compressed all week this week. A few guys who are injured. Let's go over that a little bit. So Dalton Kincaid will not participate in a walkthrough today. Not surprising that the Monday practice, and when you have a Thursday game, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the 3 main practice days. There will be an injury report today, an official one. Dalton Kincaid will not practice, along with McCole Hardman, Curtis Samuel. McCole Hardman, I saw him limp into the locker room after the game yesterday. Apparently, Hardman has a calf injury. It did not look super great. It wasn't the worst limp ever. No one was helping him off. The guy, if he was going to have real trouble getting off the field, you wouldn't see him walking off the field after the game with everybody else. But there was a pretty clear limp for Hardman. I don't know when the injury happened. Curtis Samuel, another guy who is injured. And look, the Bills cannot keep guys healthy, apparently, at the receiver core. So those are the main injuries for today. Let me see if anything else is going on so far. Fedarian Mathis, for what it's worth, also will not practice a defensive tackle. I think he probably goes back to the practice squad whenever the Bills are ready to do that. So that looks to be the most important news for the moment coming out of the Sean McDermott press conference. Want to remind you, as always, that every single Monday through Thursday, we've got BKL Nightly right here on Rochester First. That show is on 8:30 just about every night. Carl Jones and I will do the Let's Talk Ball show. Usually it's on Tuesday. We'll do it on Wednesday this week because tomorrow will be the big prep day for the Bills getting ready for the Texans. But please check that out. We'll have more on what not only Sean McDermott has to say from today, but also the coordinators who will speak today as well. One more note out of yesterday's game. Got to give some love to Cole Bishop. The guy just keeps making plays. And yesterday had the interception, and it was even better on the film, as has been the common theme with Cole Bishop stuff this year. So the play was 3 receivers to the defense's right, bunch formation. And it looked like the Bills were trying to be in man and have all 3 guys covered head to head. So Cole Bishop ended up on the close receiver, the short receiver. I don't know the responsibilities. It doesn't really matter for this story. So as all 3 guys are going across the formation, there's some traffic in the middle, and Bishop has some trouble getting around all that junk in the middle to get to his man. But it's 3rd and 6, and his man is running a 2-yard route. So there's really no reason for Cole Bishop to jump the short part of that route. And everything I'm going to describe to you happens in like half a second. But as Bishop comes through the traffic, I could see a younger guy thinking, there's my man, I have to be on him, and making a beeline. But Bishop was smart enough to have a couple eyes on the quarterback. And when Baker Mayfield tried to throw over him to the receiver Taron Johnson was covering, Emeka Ibuka, who had gotten open, who probably would have gone for 15 or 20 yards on a first down on 3rd and 6. Bishop, because he probably wasn't where he wanted to be covering it initially, and because he was alert enough to get an eye on the quarterback, ended up in the passing lane, made the interception. The Baker Mayfield reaction to me said it all. He was so frustrated that Cole Bishop was where he was on that throw. That tells me that Mayfield did not expect a different defender being there. He had read man. He figured that Bishop would be on the receiver who was really short, and Mayfield could have a passing lane down to the deep receiver. Never saw him. Bishop makes the play. Now, how much of that was Bishop creatively thinking on his own and running through the whole scenario of my receiver is 4 yards short of the first down marker. I don't need to get there and get close to him. Let's see if maybe I can help somebody else down the field. Oh, look, there's the ball. I don't know if all that went through his head. I think it was probably more of an instinctive thing. But again, the idea, the instinct, and the confidence to not clamp down on the receiver short and take himself out of the play. Because if he does that and the ball goes over his head for a completion, do you know how many coaches criticized Cole Bishop on Monday? 0. Because it looks like that's where he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be defending that receiver short. And if he gets up there and gets into close coverage to where that receiver is not an option, check mark. He did his job. But instead, Cole Bishop sagged a little bit, got in the passing lane, and made the play. And then he followed that up with a nice piece of coverage on Sterling Shepard on the 2-point play. That's not an amazing play. That's just doing what you're supposed to do. Probably there's a world where that throw could have gotten in. There was traffic underneath that made Baker Mayfield have to fit the ball over the top. If there's no traffic there, he might just be able to throw it straight ahead and peg it. But because of the overall coverage, Cole Bishop was in position and made the play. Micah Hyde, and I won't ever forget this, Micah Hyde once said that confidence is a hell of a drug. Well, Cole Bishop is smoking some really good stuff right now because every single week he builds on what he did last week. Good things after good things after good things. And finds a way to be impactful. He's not just doing his job. Sean McDermott preaches 1/11th. Cole Bishop's on like 2.5 11ths right now. He is impacting the defense, changing the game. Baker Mayfield said later that was the interception that changed the momentum of the game. And the Bills scored a touchdown right after. Was that the 28-21 touchdown? I think they gave him the lead. But Baker Mayfield is doing all the things that you would want from a playmaking safety. And one of the things I thought about yesterday was the Bills brought Jordan Poyer in to be a coach, right? That was the idea. He wasn't going to have to play. And Jordan Poyer, by the way, 15 tackles yesterday. Career high. Like Jordan Poyer had more tackles in that game yesterday than any of the games from his All-Pro season, any of the games from one of his Pro Bowl seasons, any of the games where he and Micah Hyde were the best safety tandem in the NFL. He had more tackles against the Bucs in Week 10 when he's 34 years old. And some of that is because of how bad the Bills' run defense is, but a lot of that is because of how well Jordan Poyer's playing. At 34 years old, he's been far from an issue at safety. I won't go so far as to say that he's better than Taylor Rapp, but if Rapp were a question, if he was going to be healthy enough to play again this year, there would be a healthy debate about whether or not you'd want to do it. I think you'd probably land on Taylor Rapp coming back just because of the youth and the athletic upside. But Jordan Poyer's been pretty darn good. The James Cook touchdown, they were down by 2 after a field goal and went up by 5. So Cole Bishop flipped that game with that interception. You think about it, let's say Cole Bishop, again, goes down low and jumps on the short receiver, and that play goes for a first down. Now Tampa's got the ball, 1st and 10 in Buffalo territory, not too deep into Buffalo territory, but across midfield, up 2. Not that Josh Allen, the way he was playing yesterday, could not have come back from a 9-point lead, but if the Bucs ever got up 2 scores, that game was back and forth the whole way through. No one had a 2-score lead until the Bills touchdown with 2.5 minutes to go at the very end. That was when the game was finally over. If Tampa had ever gotten that 9-point lead and really could have pinned the ears back on the pass rushers, sent all kinds of wild blitzes at Buffalo, who knows how that game ends up. So I'm not going to go so far as to say Cole Bishop saved the game, but man, he just keeps doing the right thing, keeps making the right play, and keeps changing what teams have to deal with when it comes to facing the Bills defense. It's been real encouraging for sure. Another NFL note for you last night. So that Eagles Lions game, if you watched it, my condolences, because Eagles TV has become some of the worst football you possibly can imagine. Now, a big chunk of this is a credit to their defense. Their defense was amazing. I can't tell you how many times that Jared Goff attempted to throw a ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the 4 or 5 best receivers in the NFL right now. And not only did those targets not get completed, most of them did not even make it to St. Brown's hands. The ball either was thrown so far away because of where the Philadelphia defender was that Goff did not want to risk an interception, or the defender just flat out batted it down clearly, before Amon-Ra had a chance. Detroit, one of the best offenses in the NFL, could not do anything against Philly all night long. It was laughable for how bad it was or how ineffective they were. Now, I was someone who had Jalen Hurts, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and David Montgomery in different fantasy leagues and needed points from any of them or all of them and got nothing. So certainly my frustration with this game is tinged with an amount of fantasy football bias. Regardless, watching that game was so terrible. Not only were they not good offensively and not scoring points, but they were effective enough to move the ball from their own 10 to the 50-yard line and then punt. If you punt from your own 10, at least the team's got a short field. And I know there are a number of people who today were critical of the Lions for the number of times they went for it on 4th down. I didn't really have a problem with any of them, in part because that's how Detroit rolls. So you're just going to get that from the Lions. But in a game where you need to push the ball forward and score touchdowns to get Philadelphia out of what they're doing, the thing the Eagles do so well right now is play the game on their terms so that they don't even have to try on offense. There are no chances that needed to be taken. Jalen Hurts can just play safe, not throw an interception, and wait for his defense to do the job. You can't win that game by piling up field goals. You're going to have to get touchdowns at some point. So I had no problem with most of the Detroit 4th down decisions. They just couldn't do anything. Really, the biggest argument against Detroit going for it on 4th down was that the offense was so bad. Where were they going to go? Nothing was really going to happen much. All right, Caleb Carr is in. We're going to have him set up his camera here for us. Let's put you on screen so you can do it here. You can see it for yourself. Go ahead. So zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it's it is what it is.
Way out.
You're not that far off. You'll figure it out.
A little bit.
All right, it's time for everyone's favorite segment on the Endgame. It's, you see this from the past weekend? And I'll go first since you're still working out the camera. So I'm sure some of you saw this, and I got some pictures from it. We can't show the video. So this was South Carolina, Texas over the weekend. And that officer was sent home after it's a touchdown play where the South Carolina player runs up the tunnel and then just to kind of slow down, he kind of throttles down. It's like the space shuttle landing. He doesn't have a parachute behind him to slow him down. So he just takes his time running up the tunnel. And on his way back, a few of his teammates meet him to come out. As they're walking out, this police officer who was on the field, assumably doing security, walks through the South Carolina players. And you can see from the pictures here that it almost looked like he threw an elbow on the way by. I'm not sure if he did, but regardless, he is not making himself skinny to get around the players. And then you can see here, he turns around and yells at them for some reason, throws a finger in their face. There's the elbow. Caleb, you can officiate this if you want. It looks like the left elbow.
Looks like an elbow.
It is. Well, thank you very much. Quality drop in, Monty. Good job. The broadcast school is really paying off. Regardless, it looks like this guy, now this is the most incriminating still frame. Who knows if that's, some of the times these still frames can be more unfair than they probably should be. Regardless, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this. Whether he's throwing an elbow or not is almost irrelevant. Because when you're on the field in that situation, your job, one of the things you're supposed to do is to be as much out of the way of the participants as possible. I've been on the field for about 200 NFL games at this point. The last thing I want to do is involve myself in the game. I get nervous walking. I wonder how these trainers who work on Josh Allen, and I know it's their job, do all the stretching with his right arm. Because I would be nervous about you push too hard and strain that thing, and the season changes for everybody. So for me, just walking next to Josh Allen on the field, I do not want to clip his ankle. I do not want to bump him. I want to be as far away from him as possible. And that goes for everybody else in the field, but especially the guy who's making $500 million. For this police officer to in any way insert himself into what was going on, even if it's just the South Carolina players walking back to the huddle, boggles my mind. It is inexcusable. And appropriately, the Texas, whatever, I don't know what police department it was, they sent him home and said, you're done for the day. Now, I've not seen any more punishment from this or reaction or anything, but I was blown away that even this part of it right here, forget about the part where he bumps into the players, for him to then turn around and accost them for whatever reason, just blew my mind. So once I saw this, 100% this was going to get talked about on Monday.
I thought I did see something that he was like relieved of duty, but that might have just been like
That
for
day.
today.
Yeah.
Was it just for today?
Sent home for today, yeah.
That makes sense. This was against Texas A&M, correct? Yeah,
It
was at Texas A&M.
At Texas A&M, yeah.
Is there any chance he was? Because I believe at this point of the game they were losing.
30 to
Texas
10.
A&M.
Yep.
Texas A&M was down pretty bad. Is there any chance he was just a little upset that he got a little bit of fandom there? Maybe. I mean, college football fandom gets insane
For sure.
College football fandom gets insane. But I agree with you that there is like, I don't even see a reason why he needs to be walking up that tunnel at that exact moment.
Yes.
Like you're telling me you can't wait 5 seconds for them. They were like the three of them pretty much took up the entire tunnel. I believe it was three or four. They took up pretty much the entire tunnel. So there really is nowhere for him to go. Why not just wait?
Wait a second.
But I don't know. I remember I saw this and I was just, and then him like turning around and yelling at them is just insane. I wouldn't be surprised if we got news about a little bit more of a punishment to him, but I'm not sure.
And the other part of it too, it opens up to all the people out there who, want to say anything about police, that instantly the comments were, oh, what is he like when it's not just a football game?
Yeah.
So I don't want to dive
Doesn't
into that.
look good for him.
But regardless, yeah, you're opening the door to all that stuff, which is unnecessary. It's a football game. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah, you're doing security. You don't want it to get out of hand. But your job is to keep things calm. Why are you instigating anything there? And that was 100% instigated.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, what do you got for us?
All right, we're gonna go over to women's college basketball. A Division III team, the Scranton Royals, upset the Pittsburgh Panthers 69-63. I don't have any
No video?
no video for this. It
It's
was
so
a D3
unbelievable.
team.
It's so unbelievable.
It was
we
on
couldn't-
ESPN Plus.
it
I
was-
couldn't get anything.
It was recorded and scrapped because
Yeah, pretty
it's just
much.
that unbelievable. Go ahead.
So there's some speculation on whether or not this was an exhibition game, so whether or not it mattered. First of all, before I even get to that, Pittsburgh's starters still played in this game, and they
Okay.
played most of the minutes. So whether it's an exhibition game or not, you probably shouldn't be losing this game. But if you go on Scranton's website, their team website, it does say exhibition game for them, and it doesn't count towards their overall record. But if you go to Pittsburgh's, it doesn't say it for them. It does count towards their overall record, and on ESPN it does. So I don't know how that works with like the different divisions, if it can be an exhibition game for Scranton, but not for Pittsburgh.
I don't know how it works either.
I don't know how that works, but either way,
I don't see a reason why it couldn't be.
I don't either, especially since it's like the conferences or the league is like, we're not going to hold it against you if you lose because you're
Exactly.
playing a D1 team. But Division I's like, we are going to hold it against you if you lose. So I could see that. But like I said, nobody's sitting. I went back and I tried to find like D3 upsets over D1 teams. I could not find anything, especially in the Power 5. There were some like mid-major teams that got hit, but nothing in the Power 5s. There's been a couple D2 upsets, especially in the men's basketball. Boise State got upset by a D2 team this year. But D3 is just a different level. So, I mean, congrats to the Scranton Royals, semi-local. They're down in PA. They've also beat the number 22 ranked SUNY Geneseo and the number 7 ranked SUNY Cortland this year. So they're playing pretty good right now. The D3 Scranton Royal women are playing pretty good right now. I don't know if they expected to get shout out on a Rochester podcast, but they are.
By the way, when you said number 22, I thought you meant like the Division I number 22 team. And I
No,
was wondering where this is going.
that's number 22 within D3. So
Yes.
number 22 SUNY Geneseo and number 7 SUNY Cortland are two of the other teams that they've beaten. But like I said, that win, unfortunately for them, I don't know if that win counts towards their overall record. So they're still 3-0. I can't remember the third team that they've beaten, but
If they've won all those games, they should be able to find their way into the tournament anyway. But I will be
definitely.
I will be
They'll
interested if
I think
Scranton,
they'll be ranked.
If they need to get an at-large and they miss out with a D1 win on their resume. I'm looking at the game, by the way. So Scranton was up 10 at the half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pitt won the third quarter 23-7. So you're like, well, all right, this is Pitt doing their thing. And then, so they're up 6 going into the fourth quarter. They're still up 7 with 8 minutes to go. And then Scranton goes on, what is this?
They went on a run.
Yeah, let me do the math quick. So it was 53-46, and then they got it all the way up to 61-55, so a 15-2 run.
Yep.
And then Pitt never really got close again. Oh, they got the 2.
According to ESPN, Pitt was given a 99.9% chance to win at the start of the game.
I bet.
And they held in the mid-90s all the way up until like mid-fourth quarter. And then it just quickly, if you go on, like they track
down.
it just zips way up real quick.
So with 28 seconds to go, Pitt hit a jumper to get within 2. And then Scranton came back with a bucket and a lot of substitutions. What happened? Oh, Pitt missed a basket and committed a foul, and that was it. So they never really had a look to even like tie the game late. That's incredible.
I believe it was in Pitt too, a home game.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Terrible.
Because Pitt's getting money out of that.
Terrible.
They're not doing that because they're trying to win games.
Not
they're
at
trying
all.
to get a free gate with anybody showing up. And Division III Scranton, no problem. Come on over. That is wild. That is a
crazy
good
one.
A good one. All right, it's gonna do it for us. For Caleb Carr and Thad Brown, thanks for watching the Endgame. We'll be back in on Thursday, getting you ready for Bills and Texans. Remember to check out BKL Nightly tonight at 8:30 right here in Rochester First as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in a couple days.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 on demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.